Oh, what a beautiful day it is. K-State, they win again. It felt like it had been a while. In reality, it had only been like 3 weeks, but that's a long time during a college football season, especially when there were so many other losses squeezed into the middle of it. It was a nice and warm day, just proving that you can't escape September football in Kansas with every game being good weather. There had to be a little bit of extra heat to it, although first half, I didn't think it was that bad. I was kind of surprised by the amount of people that I saw like ducking for cover in the shade around halftime. But then the second half was a different story. I spent a quarter of it sitting with my family, and they were even in the shade in the south end zone. I was like, I had sweat rolling in my eyes. It wasn't great. And then the last little bit was pretty hot, but that might have been because it was like, just get this thing over with. Looking to K-State trying to finish off their second win of the season, and they finally did that. So K-State is now 1-1 in Big 12 play, 2-3 overall, and the season is saved, and this team is back on their crusade to win the Big 12 title. Isn't that right, Drew Galloway?
The road to 9-3 started today, so we're back on track. We're going to bed 1-1 in Big 12 play. Everything's still in front. 2-3 overall. Who cares? Big 12 is all that matters. We said K-State's going to win the Big 12. We didn't say they're going to go 12-0 to get there. But like looking at it, the most impressive and fun thing about today was that, Mason and I spent the last 2 weeks kind of ripping into this team about how they don't really care. And it was clear from the get-go today that something was different. I saw Chris Kleiman in the post-game press conference say that he was glad that his guys got a sideline warning. And you know what? I think K-State should try and get a sideline warning every game, because that shows that your sideline is engaged and is ready to go out and roll. And to see that today, and it just felt so different than it had for the last 14 quarters of the season. Like, there was some fight and a lot of emotion being shown in that first half in Dublin, but today was the most consistent energy and enthusiasm and excitement that we've seen probably since the Cincinnati game last year. Like, it probably goes back that far. So to see that throughout today was exciting and an improvement. And we'll get into more of like the intricacies of what K-State did today that was different. But the whole tone just felt like a breath of fresh air. They didn't score on the first drive because of a play call that happened, but you could feel like the sigh of relief when Avery Johnson ran for 25 yards on the opening third down. Like, that kind of had everybody feeling good.
So, before we go to fan, let me do my job and rain on everybody's parade with things going on. You mentioned like probably the most life we've seen out of this team since the Cincinnati game last year. What would Cincinnati last year and UCF have in common, Drew?
Neither are good teams.
Yeah, they're terrible teams. So
but I also think that, like, I get it, but like I said, they showed a lot of fight and determination and enthusiasm in the first half in Ireland as well.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say you're wrong. Just a little devil's advocate there. I'm making sure we know, like, step in the right direction doesn't mean that you've gotten to the right location yet. Might still be a ways to go there. Fan, your opening thoughts from K-State getting back in the win column.
I think what you just said is correct. Step in the right direction is how I would put it. Clearly not everything is fixed by beating a UCF team that was not projected to be very good. I don't think they're a great team. But they were playing with confidence. They're renewed energy team with the new head coach, and we're off to a 3-0 start, even if they hadn't beaten anybody great. Although they did beat Bill Belichick. So, I mean,
well, how bad must North Carolina be? I mean, my word.
That was the consensus that we had when TCU beat them and when UCF beat them. So I think that just shows how bad they are.
Yeah. But still, they came in with some confidence. I think, even though K-State's offense kind of got off to a slow start, you mentioned the play call, getting a little cute inside the 40 there. But the K-State offense did have a good stretch, which I've been waiting to see from this offense. And you know, you could say, well, you got Dylan Edwards, but you lost Chase Brown basically after the first drive. He tried to give a go. I think he played 2 or 3 snaps that first drive. Looked like he was limping pretty bad with whatever condition he's got. So you lose your most explosive player, but you get one back, and we saw it in the 75-yard touchdown run from Dylan Edwards. I do think Dylan is a legitimate difference maker for this team on offense, just because of that explosiveness and the way he runs the ball. Like, he hits it, and even though he's not a big guy, he does run downhill if he has to, and we saw that a few times in between the tackles, and we really haven't seen that from anyone else on this team this season. So that was good to see. And then we saw Avery Johnson running the ball more. I mean, legitimately, some scrambles were his biggest runs. He scrambled 4 times and had, let me tally it up here, 58 yards on 4 scrambles. That's what we've wanted to see. You know, the design run game wasn't great for him. A couple decent runs in the design run game. The read game was kind of ugly on the edges, but I like seeing those scrambles. That 25-yard one you mentioned, Drew, early in the game, even though we didn't score that drive, gave you a little bit of a glimpse of what we want to see from him going forward. And I think, to me, that's my biggest bright spot. I'm an offensive guy, and seeing the offense come to play and put together a stretch where you had, I think, 4 touchdowns and 5 drives. I mean, we haven't seen anything like that close this season. You know, and again, UCF's defense is not great, but I was ready to see that kind of production against any team this year, because we haven't seen it. And we finally saw it.
Yeah. I was going to say, not like any of us were confident that we were ever going to see a game like this again this season. And let's keep talking about Avery Johnson running the football, because it's clear that is a difference maker. And it's amazing what happens when the guy that everybody thinks is a superior talent to many in college football finally uses the thing that makes him a superior talent to many in football. We kind of just hit right there what it did to help K-State in this game, but how confident are either of you that he's going to continue to decide to make plays like that moving forward, or that the coaching staff will put him in position or allow him to make plays like that moving forward? Because remember, you want to make another comparison to the Cincinnati game last year, very similar situation where there was a lot of criticism that he was not running the ball enough. And then they came out and started that Cincinnati game with a handful of runs and really emphasized it. And then it really went dead silent again. And it wasn't until things were really bad, they were 1-3, and people were freaking out, that we saw it 5 games into the season against UCF today.
I'm pretty confident because when he has not ran the ball effectively or much, K-State hasn't won. Like, it is very hand in hand. If he runs it and runs it well, K-State's going to win. If he doesn't run it very effectively, they lose. I mean, even the Iowa State game last year, like, he really took a step in the run game and was a very effective runner. So I just think you're going to see more QB runs, because they kind of have to at this point. Like, it's do or die. What do you have to lose? Let your most explosive athlete run the ball.
Do you let your second most explosive athlete throw the ball when he's a 5-star tight end?
Well, it would have been sick if it would have worked.
Hey, just like every trick play, that is an accurate statement right there.
So I'm just kind of like, if that's a play you're probably getting too cute on in the first drive. But that's also, again, like, every play call looks great on the play sheet. You just have to have like a time and a place for it. With how the offense was looking up until that play, that's probably one that you don't go to then.
Yeah, you know, I get you're excited. You're trying to prove, hey, we're being different. We're making things happen here.
But
tuck it away. Wait till things get bad again. Because they will with this offense.
I did like how weird the first few drives were. Like, you had the Lincoln Cure pass, you had Blake Barnett take a snap, and then you had
Blake Barnett take about 25 snaps.
Yeah, like,
that's an exaggeration, but he took a lot.
I liked how weird that the first few drives were. I was for it. Like it felt like we know our back's against the wall. We're gonna get the ball to our major athletes.
Yeah, and they definitely tried today, and it ended up resulting in a 34-20 win. Let's dive more into the Dylan Edwards thing, because it's significant. Obviously, the day he had, it wasn't just a good game. It wasn't just a 100-yard game. 166 yards, a touchdown. He was a clear difference maker. They got the ball in his hands a lot, and the offensive line. We'll talk about them because I know that is an important part of the conversation today. And Chris Kleiman made some comment after the game about how, Dylan Edwards can make an offensive line look a lot better because, it's obviously a talent. And the offensive line needs good running backs to help block for him. But I don't know how much the offensive line really played into what he did today. So just how important it is what he brings moving forward. And I know it's hindsight. It doesn't matter now, but I think it helps and sets the stage for what could come next and how this team can play. So in your eyes, fan, after seeing him in this game, how impactful was it not having Dylan Edwards in the first 4 games of the season, essentially, for K-State?
I think it was really big. I mean, I don't know. I don't think this team is undefeated with him. But I think for sure they have at least one more win, and I would not be surprised if with 2 more wins with him in the fold. I think it's a little much to say they win all 3 of those games. Then the weird thing is you add him, but then you take away Jace Brown. Like, what if you have those 2 on the field together, healthy? What's that look like? I think this game probably makes that impact even bigger because you didn't have Jace Brown on the field, and you still were able to get some big plays from Dylan Edwards. But again, it was similar to the Rate Bowl where a couple big chunk plays from him, but it's not a super efficient he's not a super efficient guy. He's not going to have like a 45% success rate running the ball like DJ Giddens had. It's more in the 30s, but it's going to be a high yards per play average with him. And you're going to get those explosives, 16-yard run, 15-yard run, 75-yard run, 12-yard run. So you get, 5 or 6 carries of 10 or more yards, and you get a big, huge chunk play. And I'll take that. And because we didn't have that, we were having that success rate with our backs before and no runs over 12 yards. So I will take a 35% success rate with a bunch of runs over 10 to 12 yards and a huge chunk play. And that will make our offense look a lot better. Then, the key is how long is Jace Brown out? What's this look like? Something we were surprised by. He wasn't on any of the injury reports. And all of a sudden, he tries to go a couple plays in the first drive and he's gone. So, that's kind of the further down the road. What's this look like going forward, going into Waco next week? But I do think Dylan Edwards was a huge part of this team, and missing him was impactful on the first 4 games.
Drew, let's hit on the Jace Brown thing a little bit, because I think some people noticed, I don't see him out there, and they got worried about the red shirt thing. Well, he played a little bit, so you can kind of calm down there. I also thought that he was one of the guys that was the most into it on the sideline today. In addition to that, you can explain why K-State probably is going to be able to skirt around any punishment for the availability report that did not feature Jace Brown at any point this week.
Remember, we had this kind of controversy that I didn't really even think was a controversy, that people were trying to say that Utah got away with having Devin Dampier not on the injury report, even though he hadn't practiced. The way that you kind of skirt around this, it's not an injury report. It's an availability report. And I don't think that there was any doubt in Jace Brown's mind. I don't think that there was any doubt in K-State's mind that Jace Brown was at least going to play a little bit today. And it was probably likely going to be on a pitch count. But you can get away with that because all it has to say is, you're either available, you're out, you're questionable, or you're doubtful. In K-State's mind, and that this is the way that everybody should do it. I mean, from how it sounds, Iowa State was maybe thinking about getting away with it with Jeremiah Cooper this week, but evidently ended up not being able to because they had him listed out. I believe it was yesterday for the first time. It's an availability report, so if they can play a snap or 2 or 3 or 4, that doesn't really matter because they were available. They played.
I think it's time for the Big 12 to change the name of it already. Make it an injury report. It doesn't really do you a lot of good if guys are hurt and going to be limited or whatever, and then like, oh, well, they were always going to play. It just wasn't going to be like they actually played in the game.
It was fascinating to hear on the broadcast Connor Onion call Jace Brown questionable coming in, even though
I think that's the red flag there, is that you use the terminology that would show up on the availability report, and then he was never listed under that during the week. So K-State, in turn, had to try to find some other solutions because Jerron Bradley is still out. So they were down 2 of their top 3 receivers. It meant Jerron Tibbs had a very active day. And beyond that, there was just a bunch of randomness in the receiving game. Sterling Lockett caught a first down ball. That was probably one of the bigger eruptions in the crowd all day. They were pumped for that. We saw a lot of Isaac Koch on the field on significant downs, which, is a little bit of a scary sight sometimes because you just look and go, I don't see a lot of playmakers out there at receiver. So K-State had to rely on this tight end unit, which in some ways looked a little bit closer to the form that they had last year. But once again, my victory lap, I continue to look extremely smart and correct about how overrated this group was, because Garrett Oakley must have chopped off Marquise Siegel's hands before he left Manhattan and sewed them onto his own arms, because now he has the stone hands on the team. He continues to drop some fairly significant balls.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger issue for me than like the drops overall, because those will happen throughout a game. But like, it feels like every time Garrett Oakley has a drop, it's like a big third down, or it would be like a big play in the game.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped 2 first downs today that you absolutely needed, and it would have made things a little bit more comfortable and kept drives alive. So it's a little worrisome. We did get to see Lincoln Cure today for the first time. He actually caught a first down ball that came to him on kind of a circus play by him and Avery Johnson hooking up. We already talked about the interception, and we'll talk about the decision maker behind that interception in a little bit. Now that we got a glimpse and a taste of the Lincoln Cure experience, how much more do they need to try to force him onto the field, in your opinion, Fan?
It's interesting because I think he's kind of between positions because they don't really seem to trust him as a tight end or H. Like, he always seems to line up as a wide receiver. You don't see him down in the trenches. And you don't see him as a big factor in blocking in the running game per se. So I think, to me, I look at it that way, that they're trying to find a way to mix him in. But I don't think they probably trust him in the run game yet, but they do acknowledge that he has some playmaking ability as a receiver and can catch the ball and is a big target and has some athleticism to him. So I appreciate they're trying to find ways to work him in. I'm glad he got a catch. But right now he's I think they were kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit, and they had to use him with Jace Brown going injured, and you already don't have Bradley, so that limits your wide receiver room as well. So because I think in the post game, Kleiman mentioned that he really only had 3 wide receivers that were healthy that he thought he could put on the field that were playable. So that makes a big difference in how you use him. And how much has he learned? Like, he missed a lot of the fall. He wasn't here in the spring. That puts him a little bit behind the 8 ball and how much you can use him. Hopefully last week, I think, probably gave them some opportunity to get him more infused in what he can do and what he knows about this offense, and get him more as a threat going forward. Because I'm glad they're using him, but I really don't view him as a threat yet. And we haven't seen it as a threat yet, but I think it can be moving forward this season.
I would say, speaking of threats and weapons, Luis Rodriguez, let's give the shout out to special teams here. He was great again today. And Simon McClannon has had maybe the greatest in-season turnaround in K-State football history, where he's gone from just atrocious in the first 3 games of the year to today against UCF and 2 weeks ago, last game against Arizona. He's punted the ball really well, and it's, not a coincidence that K-State's been able to look a little bit better in those games defensively. Like, it's felt better. You may not be able to necessarily notice a huge difference on the scoreboard or whatever, but it felt outside of the big plays that happened today. K-State was able to have a little bit more room to work with. The offense was obviously not in bad situations when they started, and that ties into what K-State's doing to free things up themselves. And Drew gave McClannon the special teams player of the game over at KSO.
Yeah, Simon McClannon, the most improved player on the K-State roster, and I don't think it's relatively close. And then, no special teams mistake today.
Yeah.
That has been a
first
trend.
time in 5 games.
Yes, first time in 5 games, no special teams, like major blunder. Anytime Luis Rodriguez trots out onto the field, I'm ready to put up the points at this point.
Wow, that's high praise.
Like, I am fascinated, like, what the kicking situation could look like next year, because I think that Cub Patton was going to be the starter, but now Rodriguez has been so good. Do you go away from him?
Yeah, this job's his until he gets like every kicker and loses it. Like,
I almost put out a tweet during the game after Luis Rodriguez's first kick, but didn't want to jinx him, so I'll just jinx him here.
Okay, good.
I haven't felt as comfortable with a kicker that K-State has had since when Ty Zittner went out there.
Yeah,
like, I still never really trusted Tennant at any point.
Oof, DY might fire you for saying that.
Like, Matthew McCrane is probably like also a one that I was pretty comfortable with every time. Like, Luis Rodriguez is in pretty exclusive company for me.
Yeah,
like, I'm ready to put the points up every time he trots out.
Matthew McCrane never had it for me because he missed that kick against West Virginia my freshman year of college, and I threw a hanger across my dorm room and it just blew up in 10 pieces. So, I don't care what the record books say. I never forget. Fan, let's talk about the offensive line here. And Drew, you can chip in since different viewpoints for the 3 of us. I was on the field for the game. Fan was in the box. Drew's getting to watch on TV. So you get to see the game differently and you can pick up on things. What did you make of their performance today? Because that was a topic of conversation amongst fans. Chris Kleiman brought it up. There's a lot of Devin Vass love going around right now for how he performed today. So what did you see out of the K-State O-line?
I thought it was a really good start. Really good first half, not necessarily the start. There were some mistakes in there, but K-State in the first half averaged 6.6 yards per carry on rushing calls and had a 56% success rate on rushing calls in the first half, which you'll take anytime you can get those kind of numbers. Second half, it slowed down a little bit. They only ended up with 99 yards rushing in the second half on rush plays, and 75 of that came on one play. So the success rate on rushes dropped to 15% in the second half. So when you kind of needed to run the ball, keep the clock moving because you have a 2-score lead the entire second half, they weren't able to do that as much as I would have liked to see. And that kind of goes back to things we've seen with this team early in the year when they needed to run the ball. So it was a step forward. It still wasn't perfect. I think there's still things they can improve on. And I think a lot of their success running the ball today came simply because Dylan Edwards and Avery Johnson made some plays with their feet, because 4 of Avery's and 3 of his biggest runs came off of scrambles, which aren't designed calls. And the offensive line helps with that, but that's really not an offensive line play. And then Dylan Edwards broke one for 75 yards. So, again, step in the right direction. It's what we needed to see, but there's still plenty of improvement for them to be a more consistent unit and move the chains more consistently, more often get consistent 5, 6, 7 yard carries. Like I said earlier, I'll take those chunk plays from Dylan Edwards, but we do need to continue to see more consistency in the run game moving forward for this team to keep winning games.
In total, big plays today, 15 yards as it's classified. So runs of 10 or more, passes of 15 or more, which is a welcome sight for a team that we've talked about after a handful of games this year that number had been a little bit lower. Drew, what did you make of the offensive line and some of the personnel that was used there today?
It was definitely a step in the right direction and a lot better than it has been. That was the best game the offensive line has had this season. It's not relatively close. So it was a lot better. Devin Vass deserves a lot of love because not only was he blocking his ass off, but he was really letting everybody know about it. And that's part of that energy and passion that we've really been clamoring for over the last handful of weeks now. Gus Hawkins continues to improve and get better. I thought that Andrew Leingang had a pretty decent day along the O-line. Sam Hecht had some good kick-out blocks. So it was a lot better than it has been. Still needs to get more consistent and get better. And I don't think that they'll be satisfied with how they played totally. But this was a lot more of the offensive line and offense that I think that we expected coming into the year. And Fan keeps pointing it out, and they did that really without Jace Brown for all but 3 plays today.
Yeah. Let's go into the defense real quick. Give them their shouts. Gunnar Maldonado and Quay Moss both had picks today. That means that, Drew, your nugget about the corners, they will go over a full year without an interception at K-State. The last corner to have an interception was Jacob Parrish against Oklahoma State in Manhattan last year. But the good for the defense today. Held UCF to 3 of 15 on 3rd and 4th down. They got off the field early on in the game to where when UCF did finally bust those big plays, and we will talk about it because that's concerning based off what they have coming up, the teams that are going to be next on the schedule. But they gave the offense a little bit of grace because they were moving the ball some, doing some better things, but obviously it wasn't like the most outrageous and explosive of starts to the game offensively for K-State. They had 0 points in the first quarter. And they went out there in the first 2 drives. They didn't do anything to score. They had a field goal, then they punted. So they went 4 drives before they had a touchdown, but they were given the opportunity to kind of get this thing going because of how things started out with the defense that forced 3 straight punts, then had an interception, and then eventually gave up a touchdown. But that was after K-State already was leading in the game 10-0. So, Fan, what did you make of the K-State defense's performance today, and anything that makes you think we're going to see stronger performances moving forward? Because it felt just a lot more congruent today. And maybe that ties into what we've talked about where the offense was better and looked more like it should. Simon McClannon did a better job of flipping the field, or at least not hurting his team with that today. So every phase kind of did what they needed to do, but the defense, it did feel slightly different.
Yeah, I would say you basically had a defense that 90% or more of the time today was excellent, was great. Was stuffing the UCF offense, giving them nowhere to go, either running the ball or passing the ball. But that other 10% was not good at all because you had 51 snaps. UCF gained 106 yards, not including their little 3 plays before half. So they averaged 2.1 yards per play on those 51 snaps. But then they had 6 snaps that gained 30 or more yards and gained 292 total of their offense. So basically 50 yards of play on 6 snaps and 2 yards of play on 50 snaps. Not a great combination. And when they looked bad and had bad fits in the run game, they were bad fits. Like Jaden Nixon came into the game averaging 15 yards a carry, and in the game he averaged, I think, 15 yards a carry and had that 47-yard.
Well, maybe he's just really good, Fan.
He could be, but I guess he learned a lot at Western Michigan after being with Gundy for a year or two. So he must have turned over a new leaf as he got away from Gundy. But I'm not disappointed with the defense. They allowed a 33% success rate, which you like, but this kind of reminded me more of last year's defense, because I think last year's defense, the issue was giving up big plays and not being. They were consistently good most of the time, and then they would give up big plays, and that was frustrating. And that's kind of what we saw today with those 6 snaps that gained 30 or more yards, 292 total on those 6 snaps. And you just got to eliminate 3 of those, I think, and you probably say this defense had a great day. But you can't give up that many. And that's really the only thing that kept and made it feel like UCF was in the game. Like, it felt like K-State was dominating when they went up, I think 31-10. I thought this is over.
Yeah.
We may get to garbage time, which we haven't got to yet this year, which is sad. But we didn't get to garbage time in the end of the end of the day. But I would give the defense maybe a B- with how they performed today. But those 6 snaps were just so bad, you just can't do that.
Post that on the message boards. You'll get hate. People hate grades. When it got to 31-10 after the Dylan Edwards touchdown run, 75 yards, I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be nice and easy, kind of carefree. And then obviously K-State goes down, and it's so strange the way that it ended up playing out, is that like that drive that K-State then gave up afterwards, that UCF settled for a stupid field goal on. I don't understand what was going through the mind of Scott Frost when he kicked his field goal earlier today. But like you go through that game and it felt like UCF might be able to kind of make this something again, and K-State didn't really do the best job of closing things out. And the defense, until late, like that's not a great closing stretch for them. From the 6-minute mark on of the third quarter, they let UCF go field goal, touchdown, field goal, and that's 48, 75, 59 yards on each of those drives. And not to mention that on the drive before that, they had gone 56 yards and everything. And they had a 2nd and 21 in there that they converted a 30-yard pass after UCF had just victimized themselves by forcing to back up and everything. There was a 4th down that K-State didn't get off the field for, that eventually led to that touchdown for UCF. And that was because of a face mask where you can't have it happen, but one of those, it's kind of like a tough luck type of thing for Malcolm Alcorn Crowder, because I don't think he actually got the face mask. It was just one of those kind of finger grazes across the helmet, and it's like, great, we have to protect these soft quarterbacks so they don't snap their neck in the future. Gee, many Christmas, let a guy play football for. But you would have liked them to close better. The big plays is scary because Sawyer Robertson's going to be throwing for big ones. When you come back to Manhattan, Josh Hoover and TCU are going to be looking for big ones. Like, you're facing a lot of teams that the offenses are pretty dynamic over really the next month of the season. Because, what we're looking in October, it's going to be Baylor, TCU, and then is it a bye week, then Kansas? Like, yes. Those are 3 offenses right there that you can criticize all 3 of their defenses at times, but their offenses have had no problem moving it. And that's where I will shift this conversation now to the coordinators at large, because we'll talk about Matt Wells and Joe Klanderman. Is that 34 points, like nothing to sneeze at for K-State today. A lot to like about the offense. But the fact that they didn't capitalize early on when they put themselves in decent opportunities to go out and score, where they get the ball to the UCF 33, they're driving on the first drive of the game, interception on a stupid play. Then they end up turning the ball over on downs once they get to the UCF 41 on the second drive of the game. Then they settle for a field goal after they got to the UCF 20. And you open your first 3 drives where you feel like you missed opportunities. This defense is going to give you the opportunity to maybe be in the game, but you're going to have to try and keep up with the next 3 teams that are on your schedule if you're K-State. Really 4, because it's Texas Tech after you go to Lawrence. So that's the thing that long-term and the outlook moving forward has me concerned about today, is that it's a step in the right direction, but the offense, knowing how it pairs with the defense right now and who you're playing, the next 4 games, if you're going to be competitive, are probably going to be shootouts for K-State and these teams they're facing. And I saw not enough today to make me believe that it's going to be crisp enough to get over the hump and, For this team that's sitting here right now at 2-3, you need to go at least 2-2 during this stretch, because here's the crappy thing that we're talking about here is that this team, like 6-6 is the baseline now for them for this season, because we know that's not a good season. We know that's a failure of a season, but you at least don't want to have the total embarrassment of not even like qualifying for a bowl game. I don't even care if you have 1,000 guys transferring, you don't even end up playing in it, but you at least need to put yourself in position to qualify for one. And I don't know that I saw enough today to make me believe that 2-2 is likely, but they at least have given themselves a chance that the turnaround might happen. So, Fan, on the Matt Wells side of things, we'll start there because there was some more creativity today. We saw Blake Barnett get 5 carries in the game. He was back there with Avery Johnson. Obviously, Lincoln Cure got to throw a pass before he even caught one in college football. What did you think of the day that Matt Wells had, and how much faith do you have in him moving forward?
I thought it was solid. I mean, I've been frustrated with this offense this year. I think we were the worst running attack in the Big 12 through the first 4 games, and one of the worst passing attacks after the Arizona game because that was so bad. It's been frustrating. Part of me though, there's a little bit of an incompleteness because the first 4 games we didn't have Dylan Edwards, and then today we really didn't have Jace Brown. So those are really when I see this offense with the 2 most explosive players they have on the field together, I think then we can give, to me, what is a fair evaluation, a more fair evaluation. Sure, you would like them to be better without one or the other of those guys. And you still have Avery Johnson, who is the third leg of the explosiveness on this team. And honestly, you're also basically today you're down to your 2 best receivers, or maybe your 2 best receivers, or 2 or your 3 without Bradley as well. So if we can get him back, get Jace Brown back, and see what this team looks like with all of those parts on the field together, I would give a more full evaluation. I think today, I said at the beginning, this was a step forward today. I think for the offense as well and for the defense, it was a step forward. But it's still not a complete grade, and it's still not where it needs to be if this team wants to go 6-6 or 7-5 or better than that. So, but again, I do. I mean, we always joke about in the press box, call the plays at work. But to call the plays at work, sometimes you need the players at work.
Yes,
because it's about the Jimmies and Joes. At the end of the day, you can have the best schemes in the world if you don't have players that can go make plays. It doesn't matter. And I want to see K-State with all their playmakers on the field together before I give a full evaluation of Matt Wells. But again, I'm not excusing him. I'm not saying he's been good this year. I don't think he would even say he's been good this year. But I do want to see the offense complete with all the playmakers they have on the field together before I give 100% evaluation for this group and for the coordinator.
Yeah, I think that both coordinators were just solid. Like, they both probably got, like, if you were giving them a letter grade, both probably Bs. Like, they both had
Which is probably both of their best games of the season.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, I think it's both their best games of the season. It's not really that close. But, like, they both were solid to good at times, still had the frustrating things that you want to get corrected. Like, you can't allow the big plays on defense. You want more consistency on offense, and especially finishing drives off, like Mason talked about. Like, having the first 3 drives all end at the UCF 34 or closer and only getting 3 points is pretty bad to start. But everything just felt better and looked a lot better. So I'm still going to give them both like a solid B. Like, there was nothing that made me think, oh, we got to get rid of this guy right away. So, like, I thought they were both fine. I mean, it is hard to complain about, like, certain things that happen in a game when you win the game by 2 scores, and it never really felt like UCF threatened.
Yeah, that's the beauty of today is that K-State, it was mostly comfortable, but you are going to be able to have things to kind of build off of and move forward with.
And like looking forward and ahead, like if the offense, Jace Brown or not, can't move the ball next week, there's an issue. Oklahoma State at halftime has 349 yards on Baylor. And that's a team that got their coach fired, and they all found out on Twitter on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, they fired Coach Bump. That's what's going on right there. So it happens. It's a thing. I didn't think it would happen for Oklahoma State, but yeah, 28-20 at halftime there. Boy, that's not great. If Oklahoma State can do that, K-State definitely should be in the running to do it, especially Oklahoma State running back with 11 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown in the first half. So good start for Trent Howland from Joliet, Illinois. Did you guys know that Joliet, Illinois used to be Juliet, Illinois? Because there's also Romeo, Illinois that's just across the way from them there. I had a guy on my dorm floor freshman year that was from Joliet, and he kept saying that he was from Chicago. And we were like, dude, CJ, you're not from Chicago. We've heard of Joliet, Illinois before. You can say that's where you're from. I don't think it's I think it's probably like an hour plus away from Chicago. So, yeah.
Well,
anyways, it was a little rant for you.
Looking ahead to the only team that hasn't been able to score or get yards on Baylor's defense this year has been Samford. So you would expect K-State to be able to put some points up next week.
And even Samford hit a trick play on him, so maybe tuck the Lincoln Cure play away for next week in Waco. So we'll see what happens there. I think what you get out of today is at least that if you're a K-State fan, you feel like you might feel stupid next week around this same time. Like, why did I let them trick me into watching them again? But they at least put together a performance today that made you believe and think maybe things can get better. And maybe some of this stuff was a difference maker. And you're at least going to, you probably have to reactivate your ESPN Plus subscription and suck it up and watch the game next week and hope something good happens. But I don't think they win next week, and I don't think their problems are all solved. But this team is closer to what they needed to be, and it's just unfortunate that it took, 3 really bad games and then a bye week to get into this point, because they should have been good enough without Dylan Edwards to beat North Dakota by more and beat Army in Arizona. And that's the disappointing thing. And I go back to what I originally asked you guys, because one of the main emphases of today is Avery Johnson running the football. Is I'm just going to be interested to see if that keeps up, because we haven't really ever seen a stretch of his career where he's continued to do it. Like, I don't need the design runs. I don't know that those are going to work with the offensive line, but he needs to be better at scrambling. He was today. I even still think that there were some moments where it was like, you're hanging on to the ball a little too long. Just go, make a better decision there. But I think that might be the key to the season moving forward, because if you have a healthy Dylan Edwards, he's now proven that if he's the guy, he's going to look pretty electric in doing it, because he did it last year against Rutgers and he just did it today against UCF.
Yeah. I would add to that, just the pass play design. There were more rollouts for Avery and getting him on the edge. Even I think one of the 4th downs he converted was a pass play that he rolled out and scrambled inside the 10 for a first down, almost scored on it. That was like, I saw that and I was like, that's Avery Johnson. That's what we want to see. That's the kind of thing that he can do. Get him on the edge where even if you cut the field in half because he's rolling out, you add more dimension to his game because he can also tuck it and run it. And I think we saw much more of that rollout concepts today off play action. And I liked that was maybe the thing besides Dylan Edwards' explosiveness. That was the second most impressive thing as far as the game plan goes, was getting Avery Johnson on the edge in the pass game.
We'll get ready to wind down here over the next 10, 15 minutes and get out of here in a cleaned up hour. Drew, Ron asked, do you think the bye week was just as important as the changes made? Team looked fresh and fast. So what do you think it was that led to this performance today when, like we've talked about, if you cared, you probably would have looked better a little earlier than this. Like, did it take that reflection time of a bye week and just kind of hitting the reset button, or was it as simple as Dylan Edwards? Like, what in your mind was the biggest factor that led to them actually being able to go and look like, a team that should have put away a bad team, and they failed to do it the first few games of the year, but now they finally did?
It might have just taken that rest and just do a little bit of reflection on how it's gone. Because, I mean, I know that everybody talks about like blocking of the outside noise, but I'm sure that they're probably pretty tired of hearing how bad the season has gone so far. And you doubly hear that when you have the bye week and you're 1-3, that it's like everybody is just hammering down on like what is happening this season. So I think that it's kind of like a combination of that. And then just getting Dylan Edwards back, like you could just feel that there was more of like a swagger to how K-State played today.
Van, what do you think the difference maker was today?
I think it helped. I think it, in reality, it also just kind of gave the team a chance to breathe, and the coaches probably as well, because there was so much jam-packed with playing a week 0 game out of the country, and then all the dynamics, eking out a win over North Dakota. Even though they are a bad Army team, I think they're awful. But just the dynamic of having to play them in that stretch was just a bad combination. And then you have to play a short week game on a Friday night. I mean, these are all excuses.
Well, yeah. Well, let's be honest. Gene Taylor might have put together the worst 4-game stretch to open a season in college football history, because it was just game after game of you're asking for it.
Yes, and it just everything that could have went wrong. And it's, we've talked, I think it's been talked about on the board a lot, that every decision they made in the last 6 months of how to put together this team and a schedule and how many practices they had, everything seemingly backfired and went wrong for them. And so you finally get a week to set that all aside, to get a little bit of rest, and then reset to maybe what you're going to have to do. So maybe that's the change that needed to happen, and hopefully it is. We'll see going forward. But I think it did come at a good time for this team, and we finally saw a Kleiman team have a pretty good game after a bye week, which we haven't seen a lot.
So do either of you want to I'm probably going to ask you this at the end of every game now, just to keep getting you on your toes and giving people an idea of where your head's at. What's the predicted finish in your guys' mind now? What's the final record in the regular season?
I'll go 7-5. I'm feeling optimistic. Why not? No rhyme or reason.
I think 6-6 is definitely. I feel like 6-6 is much more possible after today. I do think 7-5 is possible as well. It's not what we want, but after that 1-3 start, I'll take a bowl game.
Take anything you can get in that situation there. That's the thing. Again, we know 6-6 Liberty Bowls are not the standard or what you want at K-State, but at the very least, you think to yourself, that's just the benchmark that you don't want to hit, and disaster is this team getting to that level. I'll ask you then one more, kind of get you making some predictions here. Does K-State carry the momentum and get the prove it win next week in Waco?
After seeing what Baylor's defense is doing today, I have a lot more confidence. And after seeing our offense, if we get a good report on Jace Brown, I'll feel even better. And if we can get Bradley back, which is possible, I think I'll feel even better. So I think it can continue. I think K-State can go down and win in Baylor. I think getting a win will rejuvenate this team enough that they can go down there and maybe get a dub.
I'll say yes, because I don't think that – I think Baylor is kind of the Baylor that we thought we might see before the season. That last year was kind of a mirage. Their defense can't stop anybody.
Yeah, I don't think K-State does it because, like I said, I think that we saw enough today. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. We saw enough today with the offense to just go. I think there's going to be too many stall outs, and until we see it repeatedly, I don't believe that some of these things are going to continue to happen. But I think it's going to be a competitive game now, and I think what this has done is kind of reset the motor on this team where. Like, I don't think you're going to go out and see K-State get beat 38-10 next week and look uninspired. They might lose, but I think it's going to be in the realm of close. And then beyond that, like, you hope that whatever takes place in Waco next week doesn't disrupt the fact that then they're going to have an opportunity to come back home, do that. You get another bye week, and then you start probably the two biggest games you're going to play all season at this point now. With KU on the road and then Texas Tech coming to Manhattan. So at the very least, a win's a win, and this team showed a little bit of fight back and at least an understanding that things weren't great. They had to do some things to make a difference, and they did, and now we'll see if it carries over the rest of the season. We'll get out of here. Quicker show today. It's funny how that happens when they win by 2 scores. It's much easier to talk about a team when things that went well. So we'll be back next week after the game in Waco. We'll probably get a little earlier start because we'll all be at home. DY will be the only one going to Texas for that game. So sometime shortly after the game ends, I'll put the links out and everything. And then not going to be a normal week at KSO. Normally I say normal week coming up. It's not. Still feeling the effects of my move, which means AT&T sucks at their job, and said we had an appointment yesterday, 9 a.m. Then we get a phone call Thursday night after 6 p.m. Oh, actually, may not be till like mid-October we can get your internet set up. That ain't gonna fly. So shout out to Cox Communications. You're in the crib now. Our faith is in you, but they can't come out till Thursday. That's at least 2 weeks better than what AT&T was saying. So we'll see what you get from Drew and I this week on KSO. I may just have to post my phone number and you people call me and we do something. We'll get creative. We'll figure something out, but we'll have fun in doing it. And then plenty of written content from all of us, and that'll get you through the week until K-State faces Baylor. So for Drew Galloway, KSU fan, I'm Mason Voth. Thanks for watching and listening to K-State Online. More post-game coverage over at the website on 3.